What's up, y'all? What's going on? It's me, Erica. It's Monday. It's sunny. The sun is up. Ready to go. Y'all ready for this new week? It's a new week. Can't see. She cannot see, child. We are down here to talk about Insecure, okay? What did you guys do over the weekend? I didn't do much. I finished watching BlackAF, and okay, you know, out of 5, I'm gonna give it a 3.5. I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. I don't know if they're gonna do another season. I didn't watch Blackish. I know a lot of people are like, it's just Blackish all over, like a Blackish with curse words. And I'm like, I didn't watch Blackish because it didn't really interest me. I didn't find it interesting. Love the soundtrack, okay, you know what I'm saying? And I loved the wardrobe stylist for him, to be honest. He was dressed really nice throughout the whole thing. Like the little stories that they tried to get in. I know towards the end they try to really get with the relationship with the daughters and stuff like that. But I think almost having the kids as a backdrop is kind of funny, and then having it almost seem like reality or whatever. You know, the idea of wanting representation in every other in someone's story, I think, is detrimental to the creative. And I think when a person is trying to tell their story, if you are telling them because they have a position in entertainment or Hollywood, whatever, if you're telling them to change their story in order to make you comfortable so that you can feel included, that's like asking for a token, right? And you're asking for a token, and when you ask for tokens, they don't make sense to the story, and therefore compromises the creator's intention. And I think when we get to a place where we're telling people we want them to change their stories to make us comfortable, I think we get into some hazards. Now, you know, people are saying, you know, Kenya Barris is very, very smart, and he knows what he's doing. If he should create shows that are, you know, representative of the group that says that we're not a monolith, right? So I think when you do that, he can. But I think right now, I don't know anything about Kenya Barris. I just was trying to look him up this weekend, like, okay, I get it. I know who he is. I know who he is in terms of the Blackish franchise, but I don't really know him. Like, I didn't know that he divorced his wife last year, and it was announced on his birthday. I caught that little thing, and I was like, is that true? And then I went and looked, and then I looked at her and tried to see if she was looking like Rashida Jones and how they did well on the casting or whatever. And then I watched his interview with T.I., which I don't think T.I. is the right person to interview him, because T.I. doesn't have the range. He just doesn't. In a lot of topics he sits up there and talks about, he just doesn't have the range. And I know I said this was about Insecure, but I wanted to talk about BlackAF just a little bit, okay? I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand. We're talking about black creatives, and let's talk about this BlackAF show, and then we're going to talk about Insecure. So yeah, so overall, I thought it was a cool show. My sons watched it. They laughed at parts. They related to parts, wildly enough. I mean, just kids relating to other children, watching the kids, you know, being mischievous and stuff like that. When they went to, you know, I guess, where did they go? Fiji? Where did they go? Because he wanted to go to Hawaii. Where did they go? But you know, I don't know, could there be another season? And they were like, they've already done it with Blackish or whatever. So I don't know. We'll see if they do another season. I'll see how that goes. Like that the daughter, second to the oldest daughter, is narrating, like that it was her submission to NYU Film School. I thought that was great. I don't know. And like I said over the weekend, I think a lot of us have this tethered identities, especially in media, to lack and fear and struggle and oppression, that when you don't include those in a story, all of a sudden it's like, oh, you making that for white people. I see you making that for white people, right? And it's like, no, there is a spectrum of Black people that exist in this country who, and shocker, have never dealt with the things that we want to have stories about. We say we don't want to have these slave films. I used to be one of those people that say we don't want to have it's always slave films, slave films. I've always used to think like that, and my thought process on that has changed since I see how there's an erasure of that story and how the story is being told. And that's why it's important for us to keep telling stories and to talk about these things. At the same time, I think being able to see like a modern day Cosby Show, if you will, you know what I'm saying? But you have this Gen X father, Bill Cosby was the baby boomer dad, you know what I'm saying? In that age, those are baby boomer parents, you know what I'm saying? And now you have this Gen X dad who talks to his kids and cusses with his kids. It's a different, but like, okay, it's kind of the same because they're well off. And I don't know what people want to see. Like I said, I don't know anything. That's why when I saw the family, I was like, damn, why is everybody half white? That's what I'm looking at his family thinking. But I didn't know nothing about Kenya Barris's personal life. I didn't even know that the fucking story BlackAF was about his life. I didn't know nothing. I don't know. I knew that Mixes was about his wife. Now I knew that, and I didn't make the correlation or put it together. I don't know. Be that as it may, let's talk about Insecure. I thought BlackAF was okay, and there's always room for feedback. I don't think that you should tell creatives how to tell a story in order for you to feel emotionally comfortable with it. I think maybe Kenya can create spaces for creatives who can include the things that you want to feel emotionally comfortable seeing. Because maybe he sees a formula that he thinks is being successful for him, and so he's not gonna delve from that formula. Look at Tyler Perry. You know what I'm saying? Look at Tyler Perry. Anyways, let's get to our 30-minute comedy on HBO called Insecure by a Black creative, Issa Rae, Prentice Penny, Larry Whitmore, all the people who were bringing you Insecure. I love Insecure. I love that it's 30 minutes. I love that it's 30 minutes. I love that if you look down, you can miss something like a text message or something on screen or a look or a nonverbal. I love that. You have to watch. I looked down, I was like, dang, who text Issa? And I was like, wait, who was that Issa was texting and they were not getting back to her? I had to pause it and look and okay, that was Condola. You know what I'm saying? I really love the show. The same critiques of this show, the representation, the fact that, and that's what art is for, right? Art is supposed to reflect the times. One, shout out to Nina Simone. And two, we are supposed to critique art. That's what it's for. That's what it's for. It's supposed to ignite conversation. It's supposed to start conversations and make people uncomfortable and make some people comfortable seeing it. You understand what I'm saying? So, I love that we can do that. We always, of course, remain respectful and really critique the show. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I gotta say. Okay. The water is off in Issa's apartment building. All the people come in her house. I was like, no, you would not be able to come into my apartment. I don't know what y'all doing. Just walking in here, lady. Back up. There's some issues with boundaries here. The lady just walking in the house. She said, do I look like a magician to you? Issa was looking at her like, girl, yes, bitch, you look like Merlin, okay? With that thing on your head, you look a mess. Molly and Andrew, he comes over her house. They start messing around, and you know, she has work, and she first tries to talk to him about work, and he acts like he's falling asleep. He's like, let's just get to the cake, okay? Let's just get to the cake. And they start messing around, and she's like, you know, this is really on my mind. He was like, you thinking about work? And she was like, yes, I gotta finish. So she finishes work. She looks down at her clock, and it is 1:45. And so she goes in there, and she's like, wake up, and da da da. And he was like, yes, I'm here, I'm ready for the cake. I got my knife ready to slice this cake open. So they ended up, you know, and I'm glad. You know what's so funny? A lot of people were shocked by the sex scenes and like, oh my God, it's so much sex, but it's HBO, the same channel of Game of Thrones, The Sopranos. Okay, like, I don't know what y'all expecting. I think the fact that black people are actively just having sex on TV, and then it's also mixed with comedy and stuff, I think it does make a lot of people uncomfortable, and that's on purpose. Issa D, we're in Issa D's office. She said she has to get some notes on the flyer, and then she like yells out to her fake assistant Sapphire. You know what would have really have been funny is if she called out Safari, because when she said that it was so close to Safari, remember Safari from Flavor of Love? Shout out to Safari. She's an LA diva, so I mean, you know, that would have been perfect with them calling her out, but whatever. Sapphire, you a mess. So she's looking at her phone, and messages to Condola are going unanswered. She's trying to figure out what's going on. So she leaves her voicemail, and then she texts her. We're trying to see what's going on with Condola. Condola's not returning none of her messages, which is out of character, right? Molly's at work. She is talking to her colleagues about, you know, getting work done and this and that. So she says she's going to brush off her date with Andrew. He understands that work is important to me. Okay, parking space. You know who Molly reminds me of? You know those women. It's funny because he said that they're no longer in the honeymoon stage, and I feel like she's still trying to hold on to that by the way she speaks of him around people. Like, Molly is like the idea of it all. I don't know. Anyways, okay, whatever. They're at Tiffany's house, and they're trying to find a parking space, and it was very symbolic of their relationship. You know, the back and forth, not just really communicating well, the back and forth. And, you know, ultimately Issa gives in and lets Molly have the parking space, and they kind of joke about it when they walk up to Tiffany's house. On the way, walking back from parking her car, Nathan calls Issa and leaves her a message. And when she gets up to Molly, she's like, you know, self-care Sunday, I'm sorry we haven't been really kind of consistent with that. You know, but we still want to do it, right? And she's like, yeah, we still want to do it. And so they get in. Tiffany has her baby. We are watching Tiffany's husband, whose name escapes me, and Lawrence. They're standing over the baby, talking about the baby. And what I think is really weird that a lot of men do, and I'm not going to it's a lot of men, when they see a little girl, a daughter, they immediately think about the bad things that are going to happen to her at the hands of men, and what these little boys are going to do to her, just sexualizing the child's experience immediately. And for a lot of men, unfortunately, they don't understand what it's like to protect a woman or a female human. They don't know whether it's their mom, an aunt, a sister, grandmother, you know, whatever. They don't know what it is or understand or empathize with the plight of a woman until they have a little girl. And it's unfortunate because you cannot see the human in another person until you actually see them attached to you. And that's very, very unfortunate. But a lot of people do that. And a lot of men do that with daughters. This idea that men have daughters because they were dogs in their life. You know what I mean? Like, you were such a fucked up person. We're going to give you a daughter to now understand what you did to these women. Like that rationale that we have when men have daughters, we say stuff like that. And it just goes to him like looking at her like, oh, my daughter, some little boy is going to be finger fucking her. Like, just that's what you go to. You go to that. You know what I'm saying? And there are a lot of men who do that. Look at T.I. when he was talking about his daughter. Oh, those boys with those little grubby hands touching my daughter, defiling my daughter. You're telling little girls that as soon as they come in contact with boys, they are now dirty. What does that say about the boys? Why aren't y'all trying to figure out a way to make these boys not to where the little girls should be afraid of them, or you should be afraid of them, because you know, growing up, their behavior, there's no consequence for their behavior. They've been excused for behavior. I know I'm going on a tangent, but it just, all of that goes into that, and it happens at the cradle. It happens at the cradle. And as soon as that, his daughter, for some men, as soon as their daughter become women, they begin to see their daughter as the women that they disrespect, and now no longer have respect for their daughters and treat their daughters as such. I'm just saying. He says the baby wasn't planned. They had planned on buying a home and traveling, but it's worth it. You know, you have to tell yourself that. You have to tell yourself that. If you don't tell yourself that, you'll look like a bad dad or a bad parent or whatever. And you have to say that so that people can feel comfortable understanding that, yes, oh, this is a bundle of joy and a miracle of life, but we had plans. And now I have to say, but it's worth it. Okay. Tiffany. The baby is hard. The mommy friends aren't real. They're all looking at each other. Derek, that's his name. But Derek is great. She talks about no one listening to her at the hospital. I know that we've talked on this channel, you know, a few times briefly about the rates of death for Black women in childbirth and how high it is, and how in hospital settings and medical settings, Black women are often ignored when they are speaking about how much pain that they're in, which is it always reminds me of the trope of being the strong Black woman, and how that lends to people believing that Black women can endure so much more pain than the average human, so that when we go into hospital settings, like and we're telling them I'm feeling pain, and a lot of women die as a result of their pain being ignored, how all of that kind of just ties into that. For centuries and for years, Black women's bodies were used as experiments because she can endure a lot of pain. I mean, I know this is a comedy, and I don't want to get into that, but I'm glad that they touched on that, because it is true that Black women are dying at alarming rates in childbirth, in hospital settings, because their pain is being ignored. And I'm glad that they touched on that. Shout out to the insecure people. Molly says, you know, yes, that is the sign of a true partnership. She is now a relationship guru. You know, when people start something new, no matter what it is, from a relationship to a skill set, now they're automatically the expert and the professional, and so now they want to give you advice and speak on it, because now they have the experience and now they can get to speak on things like that. So Molly's saying that it's wonderful to have that's the sign of a true partnership, to have someone who supports you. And in her mind, because she says that with her colleagues that Andrew supports her, and so this is like a perfect, you know, thing about a relationship. She gets a wake-up call at the end, though. Andrew is always giving Molly little tiny wake-up calls. And Issa was like, girl, here you go. You okay, Jada? You over here red table talking? And she was like, well, I was just saying that, you know, she gets defensive. And Issa was like, girl, I was just playing. I'm just joking. You know, I'm the friend that tells the joke. Me and Kelly are the friends that tell the jokes. You know, like, girl, chill out. What the hell's wrong with you? So she looks at her phone. She gets a call. Issa gets a call, and it says Trina. I don't know who that is. Is Trina the lady at the apartment building? I'm not sure. Anyways, so Issa is talking to Kelly, and she was like, does it feel like Molly is off to you? Because she's always on my neck. She thinks that I'm some messy bitch, and like her life is so perfect, and I think she just sees me how she sees me. So Kelly is looking at Lawrence, talking about, ooh, look at Lawrence, look over there, looking like a provider. Looking employed. Ooh, bitch, the bar is low, honey. The bar is low. Look at him over there, looking employed, looking like a provider. And he mouths to Issa, let's want to talk. And so she goes out, and while she's downstairs with Lawrence, Molly's looking down on her through the window, judging her. What Molly is really great at doing. And we do have those friends that just, I remember I had a friend that I used to ask him, are you my judge? Like, girl, like, why everything is like, you got something to say? Be quiet. Sometimes you need to just shut your damn mouth. Anyways, so Andrew texts Molly, and she says that she's going to have to take a rain check because she's helping with the baby. And he gives her a thumbs up. That's not a good sign. A thumbs up? Girl, that is not a good sign at all. And so, what's her name makes a comment about, Tiffany makes a comment about Molly and Andrew possibly having children and having little Janae Eichels running around. Anyway, so she says to Tiffany, you know, she says, everything is perfect. Everything is going to be everything. Tiffany says something like that. And then Molly goes, what? What happened? Did Issa say something to you? And she was like, no, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, you know, she's always talking about me being the old Molly, but look at her down there. She's over there. Look at her talking to Lawrence. And as soon as that's going to be some mess, and then she's going to drag me into her mess. And it was like, girl, is this about you or is this about Issa again? Like, I don't know. And both of them are talking about each other, but Molly's, I don't know why I'm taking it from Molly like, more than I am taking it from Issa. When Issa, you know, there's a theme with Issa. She has an issue with boundaries. I don't know if that's intentional. I don't know if that's what Issa Rae is doing on purpose. I don't know if that's intentional, but she clearly hasn't. She just, for me, Issa has an issue with boundaries, but Molly's venom towards Issa seems a little bit meaner. And do we think that because Issa is the, like, is that girl in the girl group who really can't get her stuff together, but she's around, she's a good time, she's a good person, she's not a bad person, she just can't get her stuff together, right? Like the basic friend, you know? And like people say basic is like in a bad way, but I'm just saying, like, she's not like Molly, she's not like Kelly, she doesn't have a family like Tiffany, and she's just single, no dependence, she's just doing her thing. Yes, Molly is the same way, but it's something about Issa, like when they're saying like Issa always has this thing where she doesn't follow through with things, she just isn't, you know, she don't got her shit together. And I feel like maybe that's why we may feel the venom from Molly coming a little harder than it is coming from Issa, because Issa comes with like a very like, I was just joking. What's the problem? I was just playing. You know what I mean? Anyways, okay, maybe I'm diving too deep. Okay, Issa and Lawrence are outside talking, and she says to Lawrence, you know, hey, I've been trying to call Condola. What's going on? And he was like, oh, yeah. So I don't know, did they break up or did they just have a fight? And he wants to tell her the fight was about her, or, you know, she was mentioned in the fight. I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with Lawrence, what he has to tell Issa. But she gets a phone call, and she gets, they tell her that her headliner dropped out of her block party. And then she was like, okay, so what is it that you had to tell me? So she's kind of like, you know, distracted by that, and he was like, never mind, it's okay, we can talk, it can wait. And she was like, okay. Back inside, and Kelly is holding the baby, and I don't know who was it, Issa? I don't know. Issa said something to her. She was like, can you see I'm trying to raise this child? Bitch, I love Kelly. I wish they would develop her character. I love Natasha Rothwell. Shout out to Natasha Rothwell, because she is really funny. And I think she writes too on the show, and she's just funny. Anyways, she was like, I gotta go handle something. So, you know, her headliner dropped out. So Molly, she's still in her judgy mode, is like, and she looks down and she sees Lawrence leave. So she thinks that she wants to leave with Lawrence. I know this is too long. This thing is too long. I talk too much about whatchamacallit, that's why. So Issa DMs Beyonce and ask her, does she want to does she want to does she want to be a part of her block party? It's so funny. So she's making all these calls to people trying to, find local artists so that she can have somebody for her block party. It was funny. It was funny when she was like, "Oh, you still nasty?" Like, oh, you saved? God is good. Yes, all the time. Turned out to be nothing. That's funny. Remember when you said you want your son to be this and that? He turned out to be nothing. It was funny. Those little parts are really funny. Molly and Andrew, and they were out to dinner. Molly looked really pretty. Her little dangly earrings and stuff. And she was like, I appreciate your flexibility. How you talk to your man, girl? Okay. So she was like, I was thinking, we go back. I think, did she say whiskey? I know she said edibles. And she was like, and, do some, get busy or whatever. And he was like, well, I kind of made plans with my boys. What did he say? They was going to play pool or something? But he was like, I just assumed you had work. And she was like, okay. He was like, I just don't know where I fit in, right? Because she's been blowing him off for work, blowing him off for Tiffany. Now you want to have time with me, and now you all shocked. She was like, oh, it's supposed to be date night. He's like, well, I thought you probably had to work. So I don't know. Communication. So she was like, don't cancel your plans or whatever. And so he was like, okay, whatever. So Issa calls Molly and she was like, I wanted to talk to you. And, Issa's thinking like, oh, she looks up down her phone. She sees Live Nation and that's where Andrew works. So she was like, she calls Molly. She was like, I want to talk to you. And Molly was like, oh, great. And she just starts to unload, right? And Molly was like, well, okay, don't worry about it because it's not going to take that long. And she was like, asking her if Andrew could help her out with getting a headliner. And then she was like, because I lost my headliner. So then what Molly did was, like a parent, is start questioning all the things that Issa could have possibly done wrong for this to have fallen through the way it did. Did you do something to make this contract? Did you have a contract? Did you not pay him? Did you do this? Did you do that? And she was like, no, the person just, well, something must have happened. Just blaming it on Issa because of Issa's past, right? And that happens a lot in friendships where the person is evolving and changing and you are stuck in that moment in the friendship and you can't let that go. And so you are judging the person on what they have evolved from and not what they're presenting to you today, and not allowing them to show you something different. And a lot of friendships, that happens in a lot of friendships. The person is changing, the person is evolving, but you are characterizing them based on the person that they were last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And they've changed. We all change. That's the only thing that's constant, is change. So she was like, I guess I can ask him, with an attitude. And again, I'm like, Molly, what's the problem? Like, why are you so, it seems like she's meaner to Issa. Is that just me? Okay, I don't know. Anyways, Andrew and Molly, they're sitting down talking, and Andrew is telling her, we're not in the honeymoon phase anymore, boo. We're not in the honeymoon phase. And she was like, this is the first time that I've really been at this place in a relationship, and I'm having problems balancing it. Okay, so now they're talking. Really, that's good. You're having a conversation about what the problem is. So I guess she goes in and she calls Issa on the phone. And Issa picks up the phone and she was like, oh, okay, so yeah, I decided that I'm not going to ask Andrew for his help. And she was like, why? What happened? Did y'all break up? And she was like, no, this relationship is important to me. This relationship is important to me, and I'm just not going to ask. And so this relationship is important to you, but what about our relationship? Like, girl, what the fuck? Like, I was like, what is wrong with Molly? I want to punch her in her face. Like, girl, why are you being so mean, and why can't you help Issa? But is this her trying to say, Issa, you got to do this on your own? I'm always bailing you out. Is Molly always bailing Issa out, or always there for Issa when Issa, like, to back her up? Is that the relationship? And finally Molly's like, I'm not going to be that to you anymore, because this relationship is now taking priority over our relationship. Just like last week when I said Issa is now showing what her priorities are, and Molly is no longer a priority. So is now Molly taking the same cues, but I feel like Molly is just being meaner. I don't know why. What do y'all think? Anyways, let's get down in the comments. I hope that you guys enjoyed the episode. I liked the episode. I thought it was actually really good, and we're going to see what's going to happen. Nathan is back in the scene, you know what I'm saying? Lawrence has to tell Issa something. Issa's going to be pissed off at Molly. That's going to blow up. You guys take care of each other. Take care of your energy. Let's get down in the comments, and we'll talk soon. Peace.